Hello everybody, welcome to episode 54 of the PMD Tea Buyers Club. Last time we were talking about Irish breakfast tea. Lisa, I'm still waiting for you to taste my samples. But this episode is actually for Jonathan Price, who I mentioned in episode 53. This is the specific episode I'm going to do about Dimbula seasonal teas and when you should possibly buy tea. So JP mailed me at the beginning of the month, I think it was April 6th I've got here. I'm so sorry that I haven't done this sooner. I was in Scotland the whole of last week, I'm sure you saw on the Instagram. This week it's just been crazy, I've still got a lot of paperwork to do, but we're getting in episode 54. So, Jonathan asked, where is it? Your suggestions about selections. Does a poor 2018 Dimbula crop mean that you would advise sticking to stock from 2017 for now, and then waiting for the 2018 Uber season in August, September for fresh high-grown teas? So, I mailed Jonathan. Jonathan mailed us some time ago, and he was asking about the quality of this season's Dimbula season. First of all, for those of you who don't know, what is a Dimbula season? A Dimbula season is, first of all, Dimbula is a region of tea that grows on the western side of Sri Lanka. It's what we would call high-grown tea, so you're anywhere between 4,500 up to about 5,000 feet in elevation. It takes in a lot of sub-districts into this one region. Strictly speaking, Dimbula is a region around Hatton Kottagala. But for tasting purposes, we've expanded that region outside of Hatton Kottagala all the way out to cover Muskeli Upcut, Hatton Kottagala, Dikkoya, Thalawakale, Nanoy, Dimbula. That whole region, Rumbula even as well, gets classified as Dimbula. Now, what happens at the beginning of the year, Jan, Feb, March time, is that you have a drought that comes in on the western side of the island. With the drought, you have a wind that blows in from the southwest of the country. So south of the island, you have a wind that blows in over the slopes and into the mountain valleys that evaporates any moisture that's left on the tea bush. What happens is a tea bush is a living, breathing thing. For any plant to grow, you need sunlight, you need water, and you need CO2. If you take away one of those three elements, your bush will start to go, or your plant will start to go into a state of withering and eventual death if it carries on for too long. When you have drought combined with a wind that blows in over the mountain slopes, it evaporates any moisture that's left on the tea bush. And with that, it sends your bush into a state of survival almost. So your tea bush naturally will start to produce oils that are very, very volatile, that when you hand pick and you manufacture under a very careful manufacture process, you don't want to overly press on the roller, you don't want to put too much pressure on the rotor vein, because your tea has a lot of flavour in it, you don't want to kill that flavour. When you manufacture well, you will get what we call a seasonal tea. Now, in what I said to Jonathan was that 2018 hasn't been a great season for the western side. Last year we had a very dry season, we had a vintage year. Very, very unusual. I think the last time we had it was about 2010 when I was on Lakshapana. We had a great year then. Last few years haven't been as good. The weather has been a little bit sporadic, but last year we had a cracking year, and you can see that by the fact that if you check on the Instagram, you can see a lot of pictures and videos of me in the old Muskelia town that was flooded back in the late 60s to make way for the Muskelia hydro project. We're actually in the old town. We're walking through the old temples, and that shows how much the water level has dropped. In some areas, it's dropped by 60 foot inside the dam. So last year was a great vintage year. This year hasn't been so good. But to answer his question, would I recommend sticking to 2017 stock? If you have good 2017 stock and you've kept it well in an airtight container or in a Ziploc bag, by all means, drink that. However, that's not to say that 2018 hasn't produced good varieties of tea. We just haven't seen as much. But what I have here in front of me is 4 teas that have seasonal characteristics. Now, it's kind of ironic that all 4 teas are all under the ownership of Thalawakale plantations. I think Thalawakale, along with Bogon Talava, are making some of Sri Lanka's best tea at the moment. I tasted fantastic. We actually took this Bridwell on, a fantastic Bridwell tea, a lot of character, a lot of flavour to it, a lot of depth, just makes a wonderful morning breakfast tea. So we took on some of that. But here are 4 other examples of seasonal Dimbula teas and what you can expect from each of these estates. So I've got 3 estates here, although there are 4 cups. These 2 are from Great Western. This is from Dessford, and the final one from one of my personal favourites, which is Somerset. So I'll get into each of these teas as we usually do on the show. The first one I've got here is a Great Western. Now, Great Western Estate falls in Dimbula. It falls under Thalwakeli sub-district. Your elevation is about 4.5 north of, well, I would say roughly about 4,700 feet in elevation. It's a beautiful part of the country. You're on the Great Western Mountain Range. This tea estate has a very high percentage of old seedling tea. And if you want to know more about seedling tea, click on the link below, and you can watch the video that I did about seedling tea some years back. This estate has over 50% of its tea bushes are actually seedling, which is what I feel adds a very different flavour profile to this as an estate. If we have a look at the nose, so if you look at the actual infusion, bit of copperiness, bit of brightness. If you actually smell it, just a wonderful light jasmine type flavour coming out of it, very floral, just beautiful, beautiful smell, a hint of cypress in that as well. I'm really looking forward to tasting this tea. If we compare that to another Great Western, this is also from Great Western Estate, but tea that you make on separate days will be completely different in flavour. Completely, you will not create the same tea. You'll have that same Great Western character, but each tea in its own uniqueness will be different. So another Great Western, again, nice infusion, and the nose here is lacking. This is exactly what I mean. The nose here is lacking compared to the nose on this. This is much, much more pungent, much more floral, much more flavour to it, much more jasmine, much more fresh cut flowers to this. Whereas this, you get a small, almost oily, flowery note, not as much, not as pronounced. And again, if you look at the infusions, if I hold it against the sunlight, this one is slightly brighter infusion in here as opposed to this one. So if we were to taste both of these teas, if I bring them over, cups look similar. This, however, does look a little darker. There's a little golden rim to it, to both of the estates. So if I show that, pan that into the camera, you can see what I'm talking about. This is the one that had less nose in it. Notice how the cup is a little darker, but you're still getting a slight golden rim to it. So let's have a taste of these two Great Westerns. That's a wonderful cup of tea. That is a well-made Dimbula seasonal tea. I wish more tea estates in Sri Lanka were doing this instead of going for this thick and just thick and coloury tea. Really looking for flavour, really looking for true, what true Ceylon tea was known for. Having aroma, having flavour to it, and not just this thickness that we find so much in the auction today. Wonderful, wonderful tea. Just it's bright, it's zesty, it's a real thirst quencher. You can drink it on a nice sunny day like it is today here in England. A lot of flavour to it, nice zest. You're getting that floral note right on the side of your palate. You're getting a little lemoniness right on the tip of your tongue. It's a wonderful made tea. This really is really is Ceylon tea at its best. Next Great Western again, darker in cup colour. That again is lacking. It's thin on the palate. It lacks the flavour. This is thin as well. And one thing you'll find is during the seasonal time, your tea won't be as thick and heavy. It'll be thinner, but it'll have a lot more flavour. Here, what I personally feel is that the manufacturer hasn't come out right. Here they've got it just exact, perfect. It's light, full of flavour. This, however, is thin. This is thin, and Great Western teas tend to be thinner simply because of the higher elevation. This is thinner, but it lacks that flavour. It lacks that bite. lacks flavour compared to this invoice. Much more flavour. And that's one thing I would always say, you know, get a sample. If you're buying tea, have a sample of that tea sent over to you first. Don't just buy based on estate name. You know, something that I think we all do. We all look at some of the, you know, some of the well-known estates. If we're picking Dimbulas, you know, we'll always look at, you know, hey, what is Great Western doing? What is Cortegala doing? What is Norwood making? And you go to those big name estates because they have made good tea consistently. However, there are other estates on there that, you know, will pop up with a good make every now and again. You shouldn't avoid those. So don't go on estate name. Go upon based on the tea. So get a sample and have a taste of it. Let's have a look at this Dessford Estate. You can you actually pass this estate if you're driving up to Norelia, not if you take the rather shortcut. If you keep, I think it's the A7 that you follow all the way around up from Talavakele into Norelia. Dessford makes some quality teas. I like their tea. It worked. They've made some consistently good tea over the last few years. And I remember last year as well, we were doing a tasting batch and consistently Dessford lines, you know, being pushed forward in the tasting room simply because they give a lot of flavour. Let's have a look at the actual aroma. Now that is a very, very pungent nose. Just reminds me of, because it's such a sunny day, it reminds me of being in upcountry. And it's funny how, you know, smells will take you back to somewhere in your life or in your childhood, and this really does remind me of being on estate. Just beautiful, beautiful smell. Very different to Great Western. Similar in some ways. Almost has a very barley, earthy smell to it. Very oaky actually, you know, whereas this is much more light, much more floral. This is more oaky. Reminds me a lot of a whiskey barrel actually. If you've been to a cooperage, I've been up to the one in Speyside, and almost reminds me of, you know, some of the oak barrels that they have up there. Very different. If you look at the cup, it's a lot heavier, a lot heavier in colour, a lot more redder, a lot more thicker. If you have a look at that compared to the Great Western, you can see that it's a lot thicker, a lot heavier. So I expect this one to have a lot more bite to it. Hell of a lot more bite to this Great Western. Wonderful tea, again, very well made Dimbula tea. Has thickness, so it coats your palate very nicely. It has that oakiness, has that earthiness to it. This is a very well made tea. You can actually maybe add a dash of milk. I personally would drink this on its own, but very well made Dimbula tea. Very nice, you know, oakiness, earthiness, everything in it. And look at the difference. Both will come from a similar region, but look how different these two tea estates are. This is real tea drinking, not this, you know, oh, we drink, you know, this blend of tea or my herbal tea with flowers. This is real tea, and this is what, you know, I think tea estates and tea companies should be focusing on. Sadly, because of the way the supermarkets have changed the tea world, you know, you're losing this. And, you know, I think we should really commend tea planters who are making tea in this fashion, as opposed to this thick, coloury tea. So a wonderful tea from Dessford. Has that seasonal character. It really coats your palate. It really coats it with that oakiness. It's a very nice tea. Very nice tea, nice and thick. A lot thicker than this Great Western. I'm a big fan of it. Final tea is Somerset Tea Estate. My good friend Eranga is on here. If you're ever passing up from Talavakele and you're heading towards Norelia, you can stop off at Somerset Tea Estate. They have a tea boutique. You can stop off for freshly made tea. They also have strawberries and an ice cream as well there. So it's always a good place to stop either on your way to Norelia, or if you're coming back down from Norelia as well, back down to Colombo on that road. Somewhere that I like to stop off at. Maybe if we have time, I'll tell you about a story that once happened to us at Somerset with someone leaving their suitcase. Very different tea here. Somerset teas, I tend to find, have thickness and they have character. When it comes to character, they have this oakiness. The first time I think I've said it on the show before, the first time I ever smelt a Somerset tea was in the tasting room of a broker's, and they opened up this tin of tea and it just smelled like walking into a greenhouse across the entire tea room. This tea, that was a 2010, funnily enough, seasonal tea made to absolute perfection. And I think it's probably one of the best, if not the best Dimbula tea, seasonal Dimbula tea I've ever tasted. Such a well-made tea. This is similar, not anywhere near that one though. Again, has oakiness. Slight mintiness coming in it as well. And that's because it's very close to that Norelia border where you have your cypress and mint. If you look at the cup, like I said at the beginning, Somersets have a thickness in their cup. Very bright. Compare it to this. Look at that. This is the Great Western in my left hand. This is the Somerset in my right. Reddish, nice thickness to it. A lot of companies use Somerset in their blending. They'll buy this and they will add this to their blends to bring up the flavour of their tea. So let's have a taste of this. That's probably the pick of the bunch actually for me personally. Is it because I'm biased towards drinking Somerset? I think it hits the midpoint between both of these two. You get the floral notes of this. Yeah, you get the floral notes of this. You get a nice thick coating of Somerset tea around your palate. There's also a little oaky depth to it as well. And there's a sweet flavour that comes from it. A natural sweetness. Natural sweetness that comes to it, almost like port. And it's almost ruby in colour as well, which is interesting. So, 3 examples of seasonal Dimbula teas. I would recommend that you sample each of them and that you try them. And one thing I'm going to do, Jonathan, is we've got 2 great uva teas that we're actually going to release onto the website, and hopefully we can get them on before Monday. So once those are up, I'll also email you with a link. If you guys have any questions, either drop them in the comments section below or email me in. It's probably the best thing to do. You can DM us on Instagram, get our email, and send us an email if you have any questions on tea. Instagram handle is @PMDT. I hope you guys enjoyed episode 54. Join me next week. I've got a Norwood, I've got a Bridwell, and I've got something else coming up as well. So have a great week. Enjoy the weather. I'm playing my first game of cricket for the season. Happy sipping.